The US president has announced a partial trade agreement has been reached during high-level talks with Beijing's top negotiator in Washington. The Phase 1 deal delays the Trump administration's plans to raise tariffs on Chinese imports, which were due to take effect next week. Joining me now live is Bruce Wolpe, Sky News contributor and senior fellow at the US Studies Centre. Bruce, great to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Danica. High-intensity news weekend out of Washington.
Oh, look, lots going on. Let's begin with talking about this trade deal. It has been labelled as less sweeping and dramatic as had initially hoped. Can you tell us more about it now, 24 hours later after the announcement?
Yes, as people look at it, first, it's good news, and that they made progress after only a week ago looking like complete deadlock. And after President Trump had been signaling he wants a whole deal, not a partial deal, you have a progressive partial deal. And it really changes the atmosphere for the talks. So it deals with agriculture products, some intellectual property rules, currency rules, and the two sides now have a framework for talking again. And they're going to try and cement this, paper it, as they say, cement it at the APEC meeting in Chile in mid-November, where the two presidents will be, Xi and Trump, along with the other APEC leaders, will be together. That's all to the good. But the heavy lifting has really been left for the next rounds of discussions, and that deals with intellectual property, technology transfer, and tariffs. What we've seen is a freeze on tariffs, but there's still tariffs that Trump wants to go into effect in December. They're still on the table, and we haven't had any rollback of existing tariffs. When that happens, then you'll know that a real deal reaching conclusion will actually be in the works. But this is good news, and it really lowers tensions. I think it changes the psychology of things. That's all to the good.
In terms of this Phase 1 announcement, what about the impact for Australia? Is this good news even for us here?
It's absolutely good news. I think Australia has to watch agriculture products purchased from the United States. Is that going to hurt Australian farmers? So Australia has to keep an eye on that. But in terms of what this means for overall economic vitality in Asia, if in fact the trade war is, now we've turned the point and we're going to end it down the road, that's really good because a rising tide will lift all economic boats, including Australia. So the environment will be better.
You mentioned the Asia-Pacific Economic Conference next month. Xi Jinping and Donald Trump both could potentially have an encounter on the sidelines of this summit. Does this now set the stage for a much higher stakes negotiation there?
Well, I think it'll be a true test as to whether this deal is real. In other words, they have to sign it, or the paperwork has to get done, and then whether they continue. But if you look at, what's behind the motivations of both men, Trump, he is under pressure. Impeachment is one form of pressure. And so I think he concluded, I need to show that I'm doing things on my agenda. So he's bringing in a win on trade. And as far as President Xi is concerned, China was hurting under this regime. It absolutely has depressed manufacturing in China, depressed exports and so forth. The economy has been softening. And so therefore, if this can turn the corner for China, that's good news for him. So I think the interests of both leaders coincided at this particular moment. The real test is going to be whether they truly see it through and then truly want to take it to its next stages of conclusion.
One to watch for sure. Let's move on now. Donald Trump is forging ahead with his 2020 election campaign. He gave a very interesting speech at a rally that he held in Louisiana on Friday. It really had a bit of everything. There was foul language, there was criticism, particularly of the Democrats. What did you make of it? Take us through the key points.
He is pushing all of his buttons really hard. He's shoring up the base really well, and he is one angry president. He's using words that even our sophisticated viewers on Sky News should not hear live on television, and we won't repeat them.
No.
But his core messages are America first, strong military, strong economy, strong trade policy. I'm delivering for you. He reprises his greatest hits, and the crowd loves it. But then he goes into some really dark language on Democrats, where they are, that they're socialists, and he says Nancy Pelosi doesn't love America, and just really bitter attacks. And that's fine, I guess, for his strongest supporters, but if a president is to try and unite the country and take it forward together, this does not do that. But I think he doesn't want to do that. I think he believes that he can win the election by getting more of his supporters out than everybody else in the country, and that's the course that he is on. It's pretty ugly, and we're a year out from the election. It's not going to get nicer.
No, it doesn't. At the moment, it doesn't sound that way. Bruce, the House Democrats are trying to now strengthen their case against President Trump in terms of the impeachment inquiry. Where are they at with this?
They're building it. And every day there are new developments. And what's bad news for the White House is every new development is not good news for the White House. There's nothing The premise of this is pretty clear. A phone call between the two leaders and a whole bunch of underlying stuff indicating that President Trump wanted a political deal done against Joe Biden, the president's leading contender, by Ukraine as a condition of getting aid and just framing what foreign policy would be. And the transcript of that call has been released, and to most people looking at it, they say there's real problems here with this call. And every bit of evidence that's come out since corroborates the transcript. The Washington Post is reporting right now that Gordon Sunderland, the EU ambassador appointed by President Trump, a Trump contributor, he had a text message last week that was released that said there was no quid pro quo, no conditioning of aid on what they might do against Joe Biden, Ukraine might do against Joe Biden. He's going to testify, according to the Washington Post, that that's what President Trump told him to say. He does not know if it's true. So you have these little things that keep adding up. And what it means is Democrats are assembling the case. They believe in their case. They believe they're on the strongest grounds. They believe it's an abuse of power. They're going to assemble it, and then they're going to come to a vote on impeachment on that piece of it. And the other piece of it is whether the White House, which is stonewalled on providing witnesses and evidence, whether that constitutes an obstruction of Congress and is also worthy of impeachment. So this is on track. And Nancy Pelosi had a conference call with her Democrats, and she just laid it out. We're going to stick to a just the facts, ma'am, Sergeant Friday approach to impeachment. We're going to document it, and then we're going to go.
Just finally, Bruce, Turkish forces have continued their offensive in northeast Syria after the US announced, of course, that it had begun withdrawing troops from that region. What does this mean now for the US and Syria?
It means, well, Turkey wants to consolidate its position. Whether there's a period of stability after that remains to be seen. A lot of people are afraid that ISIS can regroup. We've also seen that the camp where there are 11,000 ISIS prisoners and others, there seems to be chaos there. Does that mean that some ISIS leaders escape? And then what does it mean for Syria? What does it mean for Iran? What does it mean for Russia? And everything. But the key thing is the United States a reliable ally to its friends? And the Kurds feel abandoned. This has hit many hot buttons in Washington about people who care about the Kurds and what they mean for a stable Syria, having accommodations in Syria. So, and there was a report just a few hours ago that Turkish forces fired on American forces. If this really deteriorates, a lot of people in the Republican Party who support President Trump across the board, they've expressed concern about what's happening in Syria, concern about Trump's leadership on Syria, so that could still be another hot issue in the days ahead.
What does this mean politically for Donald Trump? How big of a test is this of his leadership?
Well, how it's managed is a test, but the underlying it is Trump campaigned on getting America out of the Middle East and ending these endless wars. And that's what he wants to do, so he's being true to that. So he thinks, at least in the short term, this is absolutely a plus for him. And the American people are tired of being in the middle since 9/11. It's 18 years. 2 wars, Afghanistan and Iraq, and now this. And I think people are tired of it. So I think he's on relatively safe ground. But if there is a catastrophe with the Kurds, it'll be on his watch. And there will be consequences from it. We hope it doesn't happen.